You're the ancient of days. Oh, what a wonderful feeling. Surrounded by the white cloud and feel the warm embrace. Oh God, my hands are raised. But when I opened the papers and I turned on the news, for a minute I was taken back. Missing murder, corruption, domestic abuse. I couldn't deal with that. And I said, Jesus, tell me how you see it. I'm free, yes. I don't want to live in fear. And I heard Jesus say to me, last time I checked, son, me no need no hair from the body. Oh, yeah. Last time I checked, oh, my ways are better and my thoughts are higher than yours. Last time I checked, my love was enough, is enough for you. And your life is hidden me, and I'm still gone. The last time I checked, I see all the times and seasons. You have the final say. And all we have to do is pray your kingdom come. Let your will be done. People need someone to believe in. So many, many voices out there, but we know you're the only one. True life in the sun, but we're not breathing and for reaching other people there. For a minute I was taken back. False prophet on the rise.
Yeah, welcome to Crucial Conversations with Wilkinson. This is Dawn Rain Studio this evening. And
Kelly, I'm here too.
Right. Yeah. We have an interesting topic today.
Oh, yes. So this evening we will be talking about with the topic entitled When I Don't Feel Enough. And we're just gonna start off with a bit of questions and just to get you guys to begin thinking about some things before we start that can hopefully drive our discussion this evening. So if you are locked on with us tonight, we thank you for joining us, and we just encourage you to go ahead and share the live and jump into the comment section so we can have a conversation. Okay? Alrighty. All right. So let's start with question number 1. When your plans don't work out, do you get easily discouraged and consider it a personal failure? Think about it. All right, question number 2. Are you often plagued with doubts about your ability? Do you constantly think, I can't do it? Do you hide your feelings by acting arrogant or superior when you feel challenged or threatened?
What make you feel you can stop me? Who God bless, no man can curse. On Christ the solid rock alone we stand firm. What make you feel you can stop me? What make you feel you can stop me? Only if I trap them try set just to see me.
Oh, the DJ down there in the house tonight.
Normally in the background, DJ Kelly turning on the place, navigating the system. But today, today,
relaxing.
Yeah, navigating the system from the front there. Yeah.
I just this letter to whom it concern. What make you feel you can stop me?
Shout out to Mo Preacher.
Yeah, the Gilbert's inside, man.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll drop
of course.
Sacrifice, me try practice when me preach and represent Christ and a shame. Forgive me, Lord, I've been a hypocrite, singing one thing sometimes and then been totally against. Can't claim to be no sin. Me never deserve it, but you love me same way. My daddy is the king, just like.
Whoa. Alright, you're dropping a track, they were. That's for the Gilbert. Big up all yourself.
This is a reminder, one by one, of who we are and whose we are. One by one, we make up God's army, yeah, yeah. One by one, as we enter His presence, yeah. One by one, the devil he can't touch, we know. One by one,
Shout out to the Gilberts. One by one.
everything we do shall prosper. Words that speak life, not hinder. The people we encounter, we'll sing and rejoice together. In the midst of our darkest hour, wrestling with our fear and anger. The journey is
One by one. Yeah. So here's our next question for tonight. When you get angry, when things don't go your way, do you get angry? Are you rigid and inflexible, resistant to change?
Jesus, it washed all away, yeah. One by one, these demons they can't touch me. One by one, cause we are God's people, yeah. Every brother and every sister, bonded together we are stronger. Unbreakable are the links on our chain, guidance through every patch of rain, leaning on each other. With God as a father, we are under His cover, a love like no other. Whoa. One by one, we make up God's army, yeah, yeah. One by one, we enter His presence, yeah. One by one, the devil he can't touch, we know. One by one, blood of Jesus it washed all away, yeah. One by one, these demons they can't touch me. One by one,
Who say we that?
one by one, cause we are God's
Yo, we.
we make up God's army, yeah. One by one, as we enter His presence, yeah. One by one, the devil he can't touch, we know. One by one, blood of Jesus it washed all away, yeah. Everything we do shall prosper. Words that speak life, not hinder. The people we encounter, we'll sing and rejoice together. In the midst of our darkest hour, wrestling with our fear and anger. The journey is tough, we're not giving up, we're not giving up. One by one, we make up God's army, yeah, yeah. One by one, as we enter His presence, yeah. One by one, the devil he can't touch, we know. One by one, blood of Jesus it washed all away, yeah. One by one,
And what an appropriate track for a conversation tonight. And as we begin to move into our conversation for tonight, we just invite you to jump on in and let's have a chat.
Don't forget to place your comments in. We're looking for your response. Yeah.
All right, a shout out to Ashley and the Gilberts and so, and keep it locked. All right, so when I don't feel enough,
Uh-huh. when I don't feel enough. This is an interesting topic, eh? Because we all go through that kind of feeling at different points in our lives, where you feel inadequate in some area. You know, you feel like you could have done better, you could do better, and so on. But it's a challenge for us to see from where these feelings come from first, yeah, and then for us to deal with it and put it in its right perspective.
How as Christians do we navigate that? Because that is a reality. Yes, we know who we are in Christ. We know that we serve a God who is mighty and powerful. But it doesn't mean that we don't at times struggle with feelings of not being enough, feelings of inferiority. Yeah. And so we want to chat a bit about that tonight. And when we're talking about inferiority, what we're really talking about is that persistent sense of inadequacy, or a tendency to underrate yourself and your abilities. Yeah.
And at the foundation of this underrating of oneself, right, we see two mistakes that we often make. One is equating our worth to our appearance or performance. So based on how we do something, we see it as how worthy we are. And that's so wrong.
That's the first mistake.
We will talk more about that. Right? And the second mistake is comparing ourselves to others. And when we do these things, we allow that feeling of inferiority to flourish in our lives. So we're gonna challenge that way of thinking, that way of doing things today.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the root of inferiority in a way. Where do these feelings typically come from? And there's a young lady, I can't remember her name, but anyway, 3 places that these feel.
I know, go on. I try
what
to
is
make myself
happening?
like comfortable.
Why no though?
Go ahead.
Right, and three of the some main places, right? Three typical places where that inferiority tends to grow from, the soil that inferiority tends to flourish in. And I remember in one of our conversations we had in the past, when we talked about regulating yourself, and so we talked about the foundation or the root of some of our emotions, and a lot of it goes back to experiences and belief systems. And the same thing applies for with inferiority. And I think
and
I think we have to come closer. And one of them is what we call consistent disapproval. So let's just list them out and then we'll chat. Right? We have consistent disapproval, unbalanced approval, and being habitually controlled. So these are some of the experiences in one's past that may serve as fodder or manure for these inferiority complexes or inferiority patterns of behavior to flourish. So let's look at consistent disapproval. When you think about consistent disapproval, what comes to your mind?
Is again, it comes back to that home of origin. A lot of times, we grow up, and we're still dealing with some of the things that we faced as a child, where stuff like you're never good enough, right? And no matter how hard you try to do your best, to be your best, it's just not good enough for your parents or your guardian or that person who you look up to. So for instance, you get whole heap of A's in your exam, and you get one B, and instead of focusing on all the great accomplishments, that one B is the highlight of the conversation with you,
With you, yeah.
about you and your results, and these things impact you as you grow up, and it could be constant disapproval from your friends, your so-called friends, or even your spouse, and all these things affect you and affect you, and it molds that inferiority complex.
And interestingly, it kind of feeds off of each other at each stage, yeah. Because you can think of it like, mostly everything starts from our place or place of origin or family of origin. So inferiority or struggles with that would start there as well, and oh my God. You okay?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So like inferiority, and it distracted me, would start there as well. And so let's say your family of origin, as Donnie spoke about, tends to be very disapproving, right? And then you develop that sense of not being enough, or some people also struggle with the reality of recognizing that you may not have been wanted as a child, and that's a very real issue. That's a very real issue for a lot of people. And part of the conversation that we're one of the things that we want to accomplish today too, in terms of this conversation, is just to encourage you, because we know that there are a lot of persons who are struggling with a sense of their value for themselves, and it could come from a place as deep as realizing that maybe you weren't wanted, or just finding out that you might have been adopted, or finding out that your parents didn't want you, or just those things could be like at the foundation, right, for your life. And then you mentioned like in your relationships, and so that disapproval kind of showing itself up.
Yeah.
And that inferiority that would have developed, as a child, right? No, it's going to impact the way you interact with your spouse, or your girlfriend, or your fiance, or it would affect the way you interact with that person. And it would affect the way you interact with people, even in ministry. It would affect your expectations for yourself and your expectations for others. And so it's really important to understand that where we come from and what we've experienced, it does affect how we interact in different phases of life. So unbalanced disapproval, consistent disapproval. Yeah.
And then we have the next side of that unbalanced approval. When you may have grown up in a family of origin where everything you do, they butter it up. You did so well, even if you're underachieving. They look for that one thing, and they try and make you feel good, right, about it, and so on. And that helps boost your self-confidence and so on. But what is needed is a balance of being truthful, right, and still encouraging. That is what is needed. Yeah. And if you just approving the person and telling them nice things, then when the reality of life hit that, wait, I'm not as good as person's been saying, as my parents been saying, I'm not there yet.
Or you find yourself struggling with something that you weren't as perfect at. So it's like it's creating a rainbow colored living experience where you can do no wrong. right? But then you go out into the real world, right? You go out into the real world,
Yeah.
and people start saying, "Oh, but this isn't that good."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then right away you start to feel inferior. You start to feel like a fake.
Yeah, and it comes
Yeah.
back to one of the questions we asked earlier. Do
Mhm.
you get angry when faced with criticism?
Mhm.
Right? When you are judged
Mhm.
or so, and that could go back to a sense of unbalanced approval that led to that sense of superiority
Mhm.
that is actually linked to a deeper sense of inferiority. If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
And even the first one of the first questions that we mentioned about how do you feel like if you don't accomplish excellence at something, or something was not successful, do you take it like a personal failure?
Mm.
Yeah, because this is how you would gauge where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if it's a personal failure for you, then you probably need to deal with that inferiority complex,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we all fail at things at times,
Yeah.
but we must see it as that a learning curve,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And I think we need to that question that person is
Mhm.
the Gilberts
Mhm.
is putting up that you're hitting it.
Yeah,
Just hit and shoot it up, man.
yeah, I'm being schooled here, right? I in the driver's seat today.
Yeah. So the question is how should one balance it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let me just finish what I was speaking about, how you deal with these challenges matter.
Mm.
Yeah. You could take it as a complete personal failure, or you could look at it as sometime you accomplish perfection, and sometimes you learn from your mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn.
Mm.
Right? It's not that is a John Maxwell title for one of his books. It's a cool book. You should actually look it up if you get some time.
Book
and you can read it.
recommendation alert. Yeah, and even when we were talking about so unbalanced approval could lead to a
Mhm.
person developing inferiority or superior pride. Yeah. How do you balance it?
Yeah. So how do you?
Yeah.
You're gonna answer it?
Well, yeah.
Go on, please. Go on.
How do you balance it? I'm adding to
Mhm.
what you were saying, right? Yes, you have to give that good balance, right? But it's also important that we pay attention to how we label
Mhm.
children,
Mhm.
and even persons who are in ministry with children and who have parents who have children and so forth, aunties and godparents and so forth. They're labeled, and we have a culture of that where a child would perform well
Yeah.
in something, and you say, like, my child bright. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
Mhm.
come, mommy bright girl, daddy bright boy, daddy, you know. And it makes it like this ability or this performance is just something that you inherently have.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so it is actually encouraged, and this is from like a psychological perspective as well. It is encouraged that you raise your children you pay attention to the way that you speak to them, and so you encourage the action, right? So you encourage the hard work, you encourage the effort that was put into it.
Yeah.
So even if the child comes home and they get an A, right, you say, oh, that's a great job, right? I can
Yeah.
see you worked really hard. Yeah. Even if the child comes home and they come with a C, right? Okay, so this is good as well, and I can see you got this right, and you got some things correct, and you did well. Okay, so where did we go wrong, right?
Yeah.
What can we do differently so next time we can get a B? And when you start having those conversations, you start treating and teaching your children like that, you are balancing that approval.
Yeah.
So you're noting what they've done right, yeah, and you're encouraging their strengths, yeah, but you're also helping them develop the other aspects of themselves. So in terms of getting that balance back, it's all about how you talk to them, how do you relate to them, yeah. So yeah, don't just because it's your child is perfect. because they're gonna go there and somebody's gonna point out the
And
imperfections.
bust their bubble.
Yeah, gonna point out the imperfections, and then you're gonna have problems.
Yeah, and for adults, right? How do you balance it, right? You balance it by really being honest, right? And having the Bible put it as having a right view of yourself. Yeah. How do you get a right view of yourself? Many times you have a lot of blind spots and you just can't see yourself as critical as you should, as honest as you should. So many times you'd have to speak to trusted people around you so that they could give you the truth with love, right? So at times you may have to ask, like for me, ask my wife, so how did I do concerning this issue? How did I handle this? And she would have to do with love.
It depends on when you ask me.
With love.
If you ask me,
With love. Right? Respond and be truthful with love and gracious, but be honest. Yeah? And you might have trusted friends. I have some accountability partners and some friends that I could speak to concerning issues, share issues, situations, and how I dealt with it, and they would give me the truth in love, right? And I know they want my best interest. They have my best interest at heart. So this is how I form the balance, right? Hearing from persons as well.
And there's a follow-up to that
Yeah.
question, and then we'll hit Anthony's question.
Okay, let me see that.
Yeah, Kelly displayed a nice tone when commenting on the C. Is it possible to keep that tone when seeing that C? And you probably expected an A or a B. Of course, it's possible. And that kind of goes back to another conversation we had before when we talked about being able to regulate yourself. As parents, as leaders, as adults, it's important that we know how to regulate our emotions. Yeah, and it comes from a place of who is this accomplishment for? Yeah. Sometimes as adults and as parents, well, we're not parents, but we got children in our life. But okay, sometimes as adults, right, you have certain expectations for your children. Yeah. But those expectations don't have much to do with them. Yeah. They don't have much to do with them. It has more to do with you as the parent and your image. Okay. So your child is just a reflection of yourself, and you expect them to be who you weren't.
Yeah.
All right. Or better than you were. And so when you have these expectations, right, you expect your child to be bright, and then they come in with a C. Right. And it's all about you and how you feel and how you look. Yeah. Then the tendency to regulate yourself, right, and have the right tone and the right attitude might be a bit harder, and you lash out at them, right? But what you're really angry about is the fact that my image, right, what I expected, what I wanted to put out there, is being tarnished because you didn't do better.
So
Yeah.
it's really that the parents have to deal with their
You deal with your
own
stuff.
insecurity, their own pride, their own selfishness, and not allow that to reflect on their children.
So you
And
might
some people might just throw the
throw the
report
report
book
book.
as
hide it.
belongs.
You hide
Yeah.
it. But if you refocus it and you remember that this is about the child and their development, yeah, and them developing a healthy sense of self-esteem, right, then you're going to handle it differently. Yeah, because all of that is information, and I always tell persons that certain things that might happen in your life, you get mad, you get down about it, but that's information that you can use.
Yep.
So when your child comes home with a C, yeah, or one of the youth in the youth group starts acting up when they should be sitting down and listening, that is information. All right, what is that information telling you? All right, what can you now do next because you have that information? So your child has to see what do you need to do differently, or where are they struggling with. Yeah. How would that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. And it could be transferred to the people around you, your friends, your co-workers,
Mhm.
your spouse. Yeah,
Oh gosh.
instead of focusing on, and this is a constant lesson, instead of focusing on the C, focus on how could we adjust to get the results that we want.
You made a good point. Okay, couples do it too, yeah, to each other.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it's like no, because it's like oh your wife or your husband is representing you, and you, and we say tell each other that sometimes. Sometimes you dress up certain way. I say, dude, you're representing me, and it, but but even couples do this right to each other, and they don't pay attention to the information because sometimes you're newly married. And you have this picture in your head that you and your partner are going to step out, well decked off in color matching and color coding. And what? That's not us.
No, go on. No, I just watch.
It's an example.
Go ahead.
Right? And you realize your partner don't know nothing about that. They know nothing about that. And you get upset with them. Oh, you could wear that and and then an argument starts. But that's information. Right? Maybe it is that your partner never had to do that. That's not a strength that they have. So instead of getting upset and dysregulated because it's about how you look and how you feel and how people are going to think, get information. Yeah. Just pull off the road a bit. Let's go back on the main road.
All right. So,
Mr. Warner had a question.
Yes. You're going to look at Mr. Warner question, and then you're going to
Hit the
look
third
at
one.
the third point there. How do you get over failure, bro? If you are accustomed being right. How do you get over failure if you're accustomed being right? Seriously, you get over failure first and foremost by your humility, right? Because you're accustomed being right, and you fail, then it's hurt your ego. So you have to humble yourself and then learn from your mistakes. Where did I go wrong? Right? And sometimes you can't see it because you have your blind spot. So again, you communicate with the persons around you.
Oh, yeah.
That the trusted persons that you know have your best interests at heart, and you move forward from there. This is how you get over that. When you're accustomed being right. Yeah.
And we might even delve some more into that point as we go on, Yeah. So another foundation for inferiority is being controlled. Yeah. You can develop a sense of inferiority if you have been controlled by someone in your life consistently for a long time. So let's say you go back to parenting. You say your mother, your father was very controlling, very critical, or your partner might start giving you the message constantly telling you that you can't do anything right, or you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't go here, you shouldn't wear this, you shouldn't say that, right? Somewhere along the way, somebody might have been very manipulative and all of that. Then you can develop that sense of inferiority. It's kind of like if every time you go to pick something up, so imagine you're a child, and every time you go to take something off a surface in your house, somebody snaps at you. Yeah, you go to pick up a pen, don't touch that, that's my pen, right? You go to sit on a chair, don't sit on that chair, sit on that chair. Yeah, you go to take something from the refrigerator to eat, how dare you go in the refrigerator without, well, you have to set boundaries, but at the same time, yeah. But if that's consistent and it's for a long time, then you begin to doubt your ability to make decisions.
Yeah. And some people, they never get over it. Yeah, and they enter adulthood and simple decisions as to what to eat. And it's like they just can't make that decision.
Not saying that all women have been controlled in their life, because most women don't struggle with that, but what you want to eat?
No, ah, ah,
It's a joke.
ah.
Lol.
Yeah. You throw me off name, man. It's because I didn't drive seat today. Right, go on. Yeah.
Proceed.
So back to the topic. So we're looking at you see, oh man, never know what they want to eat. You see, I should have choose a next thing, eh?
Should have. You walked
Yeah.
into that.
Good point. Yeah. Shout out to Anthony Warner, the Gilbert, Ashley, who else? Shout out, ask your questions,
Make yourself known. Say,
Yeah.
hey, you know.
say hello.
Yeah. So, why is this conversation important? Yeah. Because regardless of what has happened in your life, regardless of how you were raised, what kind of parents you had, or whatever was said to you, what kind of schooling you had, and regardless of any of that, you can't allow that to control you. Because if you do, then that sense of not being enough is going to keep you from exploring and achieving all the wonderful goals that God has
Yeah.
in store for you.
And it adds to your stress, because when you have that kind of inferiority complex and so on, then you realize that you're getting angry. You're getting angry with yourself. You're getting angry with people around you, because why? Probably because they excelling at something that you're struggling at. You know, all these kind of stuff. And it adds stress to your life. You become rigid and inflexible. You become resistant to change.
Nobody want to be
And-
wrong you.
And yeah, you become difficult. Yeah, and then it makes you vulnerable. Yeah, and vulnerable to persons who sometimes capitalize on that inferiority complex, and they use it to manipulate you and all that kind of stuff. You know, so these are conversations that we need to have, because you may be out there and you're listening, and you know, it's like, how do I really
There's
get
a
out from there?
question along that
Yeah.
line, actually.
How do I really get out from there? How do I really work through this? Right? This is me talking about. Like, I feel like this. I came from that kind of home where, you know, that fostered that kind of thing. How do I get liberated from this? This is why this conversation is so useful. Yeah. Question.
How do you manage when you're constantly getting rejected from childhood to now, and you're trying to develop your own sense of self-confidence and leadership? Deep question. This is the core of the conversation today. We're gonna get to that. Yeah,
How do you manage?
we're gonna get to that. Let's dive into somebody. Yeah.
Into
Dive into somebody that's that doesn't make no sense. Sorry. Let's dive into a story of somebody. That sounds more like what I'm trying to say. Bear with me, Ollie. Don't log off yet. Don't scroll and see something more interesting than on the bottom there.
wow.
What? I know how it does work.
So that's what it does do. Alright.
Alright.
So we're gonna look at Jeremiah.
Yeah.
Alright. So we're looking at Jeremiah. So we're gonna
Alright.
pull a lesson from Jeremiah.
Brother Jerry. Okay. So, Jeremiah chapter 1. The words of Jeremiah, son of Hilkiah, one of the priests at Anathoth in the territory of Benjamin. The word of the Lord came to him in the 13th year of the reign of Josiah, son of Ammon, king of Judah, and through the reign of Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, king of Judah, down to the 5th month of the 11th year of of Zedekiah, son of Josiah, king of Judah, when the people of Jerusalem went into exile. And the word of the Lord came to me, saying, and this is Jeremiah speaking, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. And he said, Alas, sovereign Lord, I do not know how to speak. I am too young.
Mm.
But the Lord said to me, Do not say I am too young. You must go to everyone I send you to and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you, and I will rescue you, declares the Lord.
Mm.
Then the Lord reached out his hand and touched my mouth and said to me, I have put my words in your mouth. See, today I appoint you over nations and kingdoms to uproot and tear down, to destroy and overthrow, to build and to plant.
Mm.
The word of the Lord came to me, What do you see, Jeremiah? I see the branch of an almond tree, I replied. And the Lord said to me, You have seen correctly, for I am watching to see that my word is fulfilled. Let me scroll down a little bit. Right. And he told them in verse 17, Get yourself ready, stand up and say to them whatever I command you. Do not be terrified by them, or I will terrify you
Mm.
before them. Today I have made you a fortified city, an iron pillar, and a bronze wall to stand against the whole land, against the kings of Judah, its officials, its priests, and the people of the land. They will fight against you, but will not overcome you. For I am with you and will rescue you, says the Lord.
Mm.
Wow.
Jeremiah. So Jeremiah was faced with that struggle.
Anthony want to hear expository preaching.
Anthony
Oh, no.
Warner. Jeremiah was faced with your similar struggles, right? And how did God? First of all, God had to kind of rebuke him, right? And many times, God would do that. He would either rebuke you personally, or again the people around you. God would use to really challenge those thoughts that you have about yourself, those false perceptions about who you think you are and what you think you are capable of. You know, God will tell you stuff like this. You say, "Oh, God, I can't do this. I don't think that I could lead these people." And you say, that is why I choose you. So that when you lead the people into greatness, all glory will come to me, because everybody, including yourself, would say, I can't do that. I couldn't do this, right? And everybody would know it's not by your strength, it's not by your power, but by the Spirit of Almighty God.
Amen.
That you're able to lead, you're able to overcome whatever obstacle it is. God loves to use the foolish things and the things that men consider as the little things and the things that are outcast, the things that are not, to accomplish His will. So all glory gonna go to Him. This is what God does. Yeah, He like to take the silly things, to confound the wise. The people, the people who think that they have it all together, when they see someone who they consider as a fool, right, speak with such wisdom and accomplish great things, confounds them. This is what God like to do. This is His way of doing things. Jeremiah get that piece of rebuke, and God tell him, hey, I'll make you like a fortified city. They'll come up against you and things, but they would not overcome you. Right? Because you are mine.
Wow.
I set you there.
Deep.
Right?
I have to whisper now, because that's a real deep point.
Yeah.
No, yeah. And if you notice too, one of the things that we noticed from that exchange between Jeremiah and God, like Jeremiah was so honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he didn't try and hide what he was really feeling about himself. And I think, like, sometimes when we're struggling with that not feeling of not being enough, sometimes we're so used to hiding and pretending that we pretending that that's not an issue for us, that we even start hiding that from God.
You can't hide it from God.
I mean, he already knows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like Jeremiah, it's important for us to be honest about our areas of insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we don't know where whole thing with what Jeremiah was saying was coming from. It could have been people were saying that to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because he would have been young, yeah? He would have been a young man when God called him. Yeah. So it wasn't ridiculous for him to say, but I'm a young person. And he must not have been seeing young prophets and
No.
you know. So his insecurity was legitimate. It was real for
Mhm.
him, but he was honest about it. And I think sometimes all the time, we need to be honest with God about our insecurities.
Yeah.
And by being honest with God, we can't help but be honest with ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And then that outflows into the people around us, and they recognize that, hey, you're real
Mm-hmm.
about it. You're not this perfect angel from God that doesn't struggle with anything, and everything will just be intact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's encouraging when people now see that, hey, God is able to do great things with the little young person, the person that may not have all the accolades out there,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but he's able to use them for his honor and his glory,
Mm-hmm.
and he's able to shine bright through them,
So testify.
glorify God. When the thing about it is when you're honest before God
Mm-hmm.
and humble before God, and God uses you, right? All praises go to God. Yeah, all praises go to God, because men would now see your good work, see what God been working in your life, and they will glorify God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Matthew 5:16.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the beautiful thing about the story of this account of Jeremiah is that God didn't just say, "Hey, boy, Hashimodi, yeah, you're not inadequate, you're not right." He validated Jeremiah's feelings in a way, yeah, and he didn't just say, "Go still," but he empowered him, yeah, with his words. Yeah, and the passage says that he says that then the Lord reached out his hand and touched my mouth.
Empowerment.
There's that empowerment that can only come through the work of the Holy Spirit. Yeah. And so if you are struggling with that feeling of not being enough, if you are struggling with that feeling of inferiority, if you sit in it, it could hinder you from accomplishing what God has called you to do. But it can also be the thing that God is able to use to have you submitted to him in true humility. Yeah. In true humility. And I think that is an interesting part of the conversation too, because sometimes we are led to believe that what is clearly inferiority, we're led to believe that it's humility. Yeah. So everybody's backing away from taking the lead. Everybody's backing away from trying something new. Everybody's backing away from putting themselves out there and looking too confident and looking too, well groomed or whatever, because they're afraid that, they're going to say I'm proud. I'm walking in pride. Yeah.
And even that is like a false pride, eh? This is a false, that by playing down yourself and so on, is like a false humility. Yeah, and it's because of your pride you're doing that. And sometimes God just wants to shine through you. Yeah, want to show that, hey, I could take this person from nothing to something. Yeah.
Yeah.
One step by one step.
One by one.
Straight.
I don't know if that's what Tiny Angel is going for, but it just felt like it could drop there. Yeah. Yeah. So there's somebody else who had a similar inferiority complex. Bear with me, I'll just stay.
The vibe's nice, right? You wanna?
Alright. Yes. So Exodus 4:10-12. Yeah. Our boy Moses. I don't know how to shorten that to make it sound cool. Right. So Moses said to the Lord, this is NIV. Pardon your servant, Lord. I have never been eloquent, neither in the past, nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue. And the Lord said to him, who gave human beings their mouth? Who makes them deaf or mute?
Mm-hmm.
Who gives them sight or makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak, and will teach you what to say. So again, we see another, I like to call them champions. Yeah, we see another champion in the Bible being called by God to do something amazing, and feeling like they're not enough because of something that's holding them back.
Yeah.
With Jeremiah, it was something that was visibly there, his youth. Yeah, but for Moses, it was an actual physical impediment. Yeah.
Man, this is Tama.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have situations where it's what has been said to you and what you believe, and then you have situations where like it's obvious that this is an impediment, that this is an issue, and look, and God does not discriminate. Yeah, because when He called you to do it, He will equip you to do it.
To accomplish His will.
To accomplish His
to
will.
use the foolish things.
Yeah, Philippians
the
2:13.
Inadequate things, you know?
Yeah. Philippians 2:13. For it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill His good purpose.
You know, I think about Gideon as well. Gideon lists out all kind of thing. He's the least of the least from the smallest tribe in the back. You know, all these things which had truth it, right? But God wanted to use him to accomplish great things, so that all glory will go to God. So when he come through with his big army and thing, God said, no, cut it down. You know, and this is part of what God does. Yeah, for all the attention to be to him, you had to cut down on a lot of things. Yeah. Hey, Kamara, you listening?
Yeah, Kamara, wait.
Yeah.
Throw up Kamara point there.
What's he saying?
David didn't have this problem with Goliath. You bring up David, but I like to talk about David. Is it that he spent time in worship and knowing God before his challenge, while the others may not have had prep time? It's a good question. Interesting question. You want to take that?
Yeah. As you talk about prep time, what David did. David said that he faced the lion, he faced the bear, and all these experiences, right, showed him that, hey, God, the same God that saved me from this lion and this bear and all this stuff, the same God that could defeat this giant before me. We grow in our faith, we grow in our confidence, we grow in our trust with God. This is part of the human journey, and the Christian journey is a journey where we flex our faith muscle, and it gets stronger. Yeah, we continue to overcome challenges, lift the weights of these challenges, lift the weights of our failures, and so on. That tearing of the muscle, right? And then as it meant we get stronger. We build, right? And by the time David reached to Goliath, he had some faith muscles there, right? He had some confidence, right, in God, that God could work through him for greatness. And this is what happened. But the Bible didn't say about how the first time when he might have faced the lion or the bear. We don't know if he say, God, help me, I really can't do this. Look at that lion coming. What should I do? Should I run? Should I wonder if I have enough stones? That could be his thoughts, right? But God would have used what he had and overcome the lion, right? And he built some confidence, and he could trust God to overcome the bear. And then we see Goliath there. He's like, who is this uncircumcised Philistine coming against God and his people? It's like, what? You go deal with that one by one by one.
Yeah. So the prep time thing, it you know we the prep time thing is a valid point, and it also comes back to something that you always say, that in the body of Christ we're not always going to be, all of us is not going to be at the same level all the time, at the same time. Yeah. So as somebody might have had the prep time because they've been a Christian, wasn't just a Christian, but they was a practicing Christian. Yeah. So they've been preparing. Been preparing. So when the challenge comes, they're able, like David, to stand up when everybody's cowering and do what God has called him to do. Whereas you might have somebody else who's relatively new, who's relatively young, who's relatively immature in the faith, and the challenge comes up or the call comes at that point, and they're scared and they feel inadequate and they feel like they're not enough. So yes, your relationship with God over time, I believe it does help with that feeling of inferiority.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Because
shout out.
As you grow in your relationship with God, you grow in your confidence, you know, in God. Yeah, you grow from strength to strength, and you're able to see things not in your own strength, but in the strength of God. You're able to see that, hey, there's more with me than more against me. Yeah, and you're able to overcome. Yeah. Shout out to Tracy out there and the Ali Bacchus family in Atlanta, Georgia.
It's good to have you guys listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, stay locked.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's important. So if it is that you're listening right now and this is something that you're dealing with, and this is something that you're struggling with right now, then submit yourself to God.
Yeah.
Hear what He has to say to you about you. Everybody else is saying stuff. You have all the voices swirling around your head from probably as early as you could have said your first word. Yeah. But like God told Moses, who created the mouth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the very thing that you feel like is the thing that's holding you back is the very thing that God is sovereign over.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and the more you yield to His guidance and His word, the more you're sensitive to the Spirit of God. You're able to stand, even though they may try to tear you down, whoever they may be. They may try to say, nah, you can't be hearing from God. God didn't say that. God can't say that to you because look at you. You're too young. You're not educated enough. You can't speak as Moses. You can't speak clearly and saying how God could call you to talk to people. Yeah. But the more you submit to God and hear His voice, you're able to stand and say, yo, this is what God is saying to me, and stand on that. Stand knowing that it's not in my strength, it's not in my ability, but in the Spirit of God that I'm standing, and see success. Confound those wise people who know better than God, right?
Yeah. Job friends.
Yeah, who know how things should be, and they don't even want to hear from God because they have it all together, you know.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean that it's okay for you to be bitter or harbor resentment towards these persons, because the reality is that this is human nature. We respond to what we see, what our senses can pick up. Right? The Bible says that man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. Yeah. So when people judge you based on what they see, that's usually the tools that they have. Right?
Yeah.
So don't get mad at people, but focus on what the Word of God says.
Yeah, what God is saying to you.
Yeah, so Kamari, I hope that got your question.
Yeah. Tell us if you get it in a comment. And the driver's seat, I'm pulling up the comments and things, so I'm looking for you to comment. You know?
Yeah. All right. So, if we go back to Jeremiah's story, we would notice some key things that God told him that are principles that we can also use. Yeah. God made it clear to Jeremiah that he was under God's authority.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's something that's very important. Yeah, under whose authority?
Yeah.
Yeah, are you going? God made it very clear to Jeremiah that he was protected by God.
Mm-hmm. Do not be afraid of them, is what he said. Do not be afraid of them.
Hmm.
Yeah. The reason why he could say that is because he is there with you. He promised never to leave nor forsake. So you don't have to be afraid of the situation, the people, the faces, they screw up face and thing, Nah.
And God didn't tell him you're not gonna have issues. He
Mm-hmm.
said you're gonna have problems.
Yeah.
But
See,
I
they
will
could try
protect
and
you.
destroy it.
Mhm,
But
mhm,
I'm going to be there. Make it like a fortified city.
mhm.
Yeah?
Yeah, and another thing we noticed there that God was the source of his ability. Yeah, and we see the symbolism of God touching his
His lips. Mouth, yeah.
yeah. So
source of the ability.
Yeah.
Wow.
yeah,
Like
but
that.
yeah, God made it clear that hey, I'm gonna give you the ability to do the job.
Mm-hmm.
And when we understand that, man,
Yeah. A big weight off your shoulder.
yeah,
Because I have to somehow try and be able to do this.
it's okay if I'm not enough
Yeah.
in myself. Yeah,
It's God
those
gonna
might
do
be
it.
legitimate fears.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have anxiety every time you stand up to speak in front of somebody, your heart start palpitating, you sweat, and you can't think clearly. That's
Yeah.
a real thing.
Yeah.
It's justified.
Yeah, I remember when I started to preach, and like my hand used to shake.
Mm.
The paper used to shake in my hand. I just stand like I read on the paper and my eye getting blurry. And it's like God just took me from that place. Helped me with every aspect.
Mm.
Equipped me, sharpened me for ministry. And yeah, when I hear myself, I was like, who's that?
I used to get weak.
Mm.
No, for real. I used to feel like weak in the knees, man. And yeah, and then I would just run through it and just eat up all of my words, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank God for Jesus.
Yeah, and thank God for the process too. It humbles you
Mm-hmm.
because you realize you see the growth.
Mm-hmm.
It was a process of growth, and this is what God does. Yeah. He uses us and he take us to where he wants. We may not even be able to see it
Mm.
because we looking at where we are right now, and we're not seeing how to navigate to where we should be, but God knows how to do it. Is there anything impossible with God? Nope.
Is there anything too
created-
hard for the Lord? No.
Yeah.
Drop that trap.
Alright.
Yay, Anthony's leaving. Good night, Anthony. It was good having you. Big up yourself. Yeah. All right. How we going for time, man?
A little bit more.
All right. So we continuing. We were talking about right. God was the source of his ability. That was the last thing we said. Right. We also had that. Right. So from this whole conversation, right? How do we fight inferiority? How do we fight that feeling of not being enough? Yeah. And looking at Jeremiah's story as at Moses' story, even David's story, yeah, one of the things that we can take is that we can fight that feeling of not being enough by believing what God says.
Yeah.
Yeah, by believing God's promises. So if God says he's going to protect you, right? You got to believe that he's going to protect you.
Yeah. If he says he's gonna provide,
You got to believe he's going to
yeah,
provide.
he's gonna provide. Even if he's telling you to go into this desert place where you're not seeing where the provision is gonna come from, you could trust him.
Hmm.
that the creator of heaven and earth is able to provide in the middle of a desert.
Hmm.
Yeah, and you may be going through your desert place right now, the backside of the desert, and you know, life just a bit hard right now.
Mhm.
Yeah, but if God tell you this, hey, I want to take you through this, and God been telling you that, been sending His saints to encourage you, to speak into your life, to pray for you, and so on. You
Mm.
could trust God to take you through whatever the circumstances is. Yeah,
Mhm.
even if during that time it's so hard, you would face the trials, like yeah, God told Jeremiah you're gonna face the people, the opposition from people. He's gonna be like a city under attack, but God is gonna fortify him. God
Mm.
is gonna help you. He's gonna give you everything you need for life to go through this thing. He's gonna give you his peace that surpasses all understanding. But
Mm.
hey, trust in him. He's going to give you the grace to go through whatever challenge, whatever suffering you're facing with right now. God is able to do it, right?
Yeah.
And rest in him.
Mm.
It's not about you necessarily, although you're going through the experience, but God is going to do great things
Mhm.
through you.
And then the beautiful thing about Jeremiah's experience too is that when you read that verse, that introduction, it talks about during Josiah's reign.
Mm.
And interestingly, Josiah was a young king, right? And he was one of the few righteous kings.
Mm-hmm.
And he was really fighting up. Yeah. And interestingly, God raised up Jeremiah, the prophet, to strengthen the king.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so sometimes your call is not just about you. Not sometimes, most all the time. Right? Your
Mhm.
call is not just about you. It's about a season, it's about a generation, it's about a movement, it's about someone some way,
Mm.
right? Who needs what it is you have been given to offer. Yeah. So it just solidifies how important it is to work through those feelings of not being enough, those insecurities, those inadequacies, because it's not just about you, right? It's about being able to impact the kingdom,
Yeah.
the world, for the kingdom,
Yeah.
you know,
For God's glory.
for God's glory, for God's
Yeah.
glory. Yeah. I feel like we're kind of winding down
Yeah.
a bit,
So,
but
any other comments, any questions that you wanna ask? This is your time before we shut down the segment for today.
mhm.
Yeah, but don't be afraid of your inadequacies.
Mm.
Right? In God, you already won by faith.
And if you
You
don't have
already
questions,
win. You already win by faith.
yeah, man.
This is what I want to leave it with you. Even if you're not seeing it, even if things look difficult, it look hard, it look impossible,
Mm.
right? Even though in your own inadequacies, you're bound to fail, but you could put your trust in God, right? And you already won by faith. Yeah? So let faith in God really drive you.
Mhm.
Let His grace be sufficient through whatever challenge or suffering that you may face. This is what I want to leave with you tonight.
That's good stuff. I
Alright?
don't think I need to add more to that.
Alright, so
So again, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, and
yeah.
DJ.
And
What
for
you wanna
really
do?
commenting,
Being
asking
a
your
part.
questions, being a part of it. We enjoy that. We enjoy that. So we're gonna play no a girl there.
One
Tiny
by
Angel.
one by Tiny Angel.
Touch me.
One by
One by one by this is a reminder. One by one of who we are and whose we are.
one by one.
One by one, we make up God's army, yeah. One by one, as we enter His presence, yeah. One by that speak life, not hinder. The people we encounter, we'll sing and rejoice together. In the midst of our darkest hour, wrestling with our fear and anger. The journey is tough, we're not giving up, we're not giving up. One by one, we make up God's army, yeah, yeah. One by one, as we enter His presence, yeah. One by one, the devil he can't touch, we know. One by one, blood of Jesus it washed all of we, yeah. One by one, one by one, these demons they can't touch me. One by one, cause we are God's people, yeah. Every brother and every sister, bonded together we are stronger. Unbreakable are the links on our chain, guidance through every patch of rain, leaning on each other. With God as a father, we are under His cover, a love like no other. Oh, one by one, we make up God's army, yeah, yeah. One by one, we enter His presence, yeah. One by one, the devil he can't touch, we know. One by one, blood of Jesus it washed all of me, yeah. One by one, these demons they can't touch me. One by one,
Good night, everyone. It was a blessing being here. We enjoyed the program.
Third Friday.
All right, every third Friday, link us crucial conversations with the world concerned, talking about life, godliness, contemporary issues, the word, psychology, theology. This is what we do.
Monopoly.
Enjoy. Wow. Enjoy it, and we look forward to the next one. Take care.
these demons they can't touch me. One by one, one by one, one by